There is some of them that have almost normal development, but it's the exception.
Fellow Homo sapiens, my name is Torie Robinson, and welcome back to Epilepsy Sparks Insights. Now, who has heard of alternating hemiplegia of childhood? It is one of the rarest, most confusing, devastating genetic diseases, where epilepsy is one of the symptoms. Today, we hear from Eleni Panagiotakaki, who shares with us the complexities of AHC epilepsy, plus the positive influence and motivation that parents can provide when it comes to researching certain epilepsies, like AHC.
So I'm a pediatric neurologist and specialized in pediatric epileptology. Right now I'm working in Lyon in France, and I'm doing pediatric epileptology and EEG. I'm also reading EEGs.
We've got a couple of topics today because I know that you've got a passion for rare epilepsies.
Yes.
For instance, AHC, which has got a really long real name, and the GRIN diseases, which often have epilepsy as a symptom. Could you tell us about your work in these, please? And by work, I mean your work with individuals, families, colleagues, but also the research that you do into them, please.
AHC is Alternating Hemiplegia of Childhood, but it's Alternating Hemiplegia of not only childhood, because you can have it and be an adult and be even 60 years old. Now we have patients that are really old.
Who are older.
Yes, older, yes. And it's a strange disorder. It's very rare. Initially, it was thought that the prevalence was 1 in 1 million people, but we think now that it's much more frequent, 1 in 100,000. But even with this, it's really very, very rare. And the children, because it starts when you are very young, in the below to 18 months, the children and then the patients that have it, they have episodes during which they get paralyzed on one or the other side of the body for some time, for some, it could be some minutes, some hours, sometimes many days. And then this goes off, and then they have it on the other side of the body. And it's really it's really a disorder that this cannot be prevented. Sometimes you can have some triggers. You can have the episodes when you are more tired, or when you're exposed in bright lights, in water, in cold, hot weather. But you never know when next episode will start.
By episodes, do you mean seizures, or what do you mean?
The patients can have lots of different episodes. They can have hemiplegic episodes. They can have dystonic episodes, episodes of rigidity. Likewise, either on one or the other part of the body. They can have episodes of autonomic dysfunction. That is to say, they can have palpitations or bradycardia, or the pupils of the eyes that go mydriasis, that go sweating, breathing difficulties by episodes, and they can have epilepsy. About half of them at one time during their lifetime will have epilepsy also.
And this is interesting, I think, and an interesting example, because many of what we call the rare epilepsies, epilepsy is just one of the symptoms often of the disease, right? And it can vary hugely, can't it? The severity of the epilepsy, just like with the other symptoms, and just like people who don't have a rare epilepsy, our seizures can vary in severity and frequency and stuff like that. So it's quite like that, I think, with, for instance, AHC. In different people, the symptoms vary a great deal.
Yes, that's exactly that, because you can have patients that the epilepsy is very predominant and starts very early on life, and so since the age that they were babies. They begin with a lot of seizures, and this is the predominant symptom. You can have other children or adults that have mostly the episodes and very rare seizures, and so it's very variable.
It sounds like a very confusing disease to clinicians as well as the individuals with it. And I've heard that the understanding of it is just increasing all the time, although not enough, but just because very little is understood about it, relatively speaking, compared to other diseases.
It is difficult to diagnose because most of the time, when parents say, I think it's paralyzed, they don't believe the parents, or they think that maybe it's seizures, and then you have post-ictal paralysis. So really it's difficult to diagnose. It's very rare. So there's a lot of doctors that don't know the disorder. It's normal. I mean, all doctors, we don't know all the disorders that exist.
Oh, right, yeah. So, of course.
If you have heard once in your lifetime or read in a book, you don't really know how to diagnose it. So it is confusing and difficult to diagnose. Also, how to treat it, because you should treat the hemiplegic, hemidystonic, etc. episodes, plus or minus the epilepsy. And between episodes, the most of the time, the children have a developmental disorder. There is some of them that have almost normal development, but it's the exception. Most of them they can have different severities of
intellectual disability and
yes.
Cognitive function.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think a bit sometimes of how people with cerebral palsy are much more likely to have epilepsy, but people often don't realise that that so many, I mean, I've read it's about 50%, could be wrong, but about 50% of people with cerebral palsy have epilepsy, but you only ever hear about the cerebral palsy. And even though the epilepsy could be more impactful than cerebral palsy, or it could be vice versa. And I guess it could be a bit like that with this disease as well, given that there are so many symptoms that they could have. Which one do you talk about the most, and which is priority in a doctor's appointment? And it must be hard, I imagine, to look at quality of life as well as trying to manage symptoms at the same time.
It is a challenge. Lately, we found out that they can have also heart problems. So arrhythmias. And so for us pediatricians, because I started as a pediatrician. For us, in the appointments, we are trying to see the patient as a whole and take care of almost everything. There is a problem when we switch from pediatricians to adult neurologists, but because an adult neurologist is a neurologist, he's not also gastroenterologist or cardiologist or all the others. And then there is a problem. There are very few countries where now they are trying to have a specialty of doctors that take care in an holistic manner of patients with these developmental and epileptic encephalopathies. It's a real problem, especially in adult life. Yes.
I mean, I can think about what a challenge it is for those of us who don't have those additional morbidities, but have problems, verbally communicating what you feel. But if you often struggle to do that and you've got all this extra stuff, even giving the information required to your clinician is really difficult, right? Let alone interpreting it. How would you say, so because you've been studying GRIN as well, so multiple GRIN disorders, GRIN, for people who aren't familiar, there are different GRIN genes, and a lot of these people with these mutations will have an epilepsy as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. So this is much more, alternating hemiplegia is being a subject of study and preoccupation for me 20 years now. This was helpful because finally we found out that it is a genetic disorder. It is until 2012 we found out that it is mainly caused by mutation in one gene. In 80% of patients, the gene is ATP1A3, and there are some other genes in the remaining 20%. So, and it is a disorder where you have epilepsy plus minus other things. From there, I became interested in other genetic disorders, genetic epileptic encephalopathies that now we are capable of diagnosing with advances in genetics. And I said, this also can have epilepsy plus this. You know, you have so Alternating Hemiplegia was a very beautiful prototype for how to approach other kind of disorders. I'm looking after people with a lot of rare genetic epilepsies, not only
everything, right? SCN2A, SCN8A.
Exactly. And recently we have been contacted by association of parents and that asked us to do something in Lyon with GRIN genes. So we were pushed by parents.
Where the pushing does work sometimes.
Yes, yes. I mean, in Alternating Hemiplegia, it was the same thing because when I was in Paris, I was between 2004 and 2008 in Paris, working in Robert Debré Hospital with Alexis Archimanoglu, and it was the same thing. There was a mother of a child with Alternating Hemiplegia of Childhood that managed to have a European funding. She wrote a protocol. She had a scientific background, but she wrote a protocol, and she managed to have a big European funding, and then she approached many different teams in all around Europe and made us work together. Really, I don't think that we have that without the motor of the parents we would have done all those things. It's really great. I mean, thank you, parents.
Thank you so much to Eleni for giving us a snippet into the complexities of the rare epilepsy AHC, the crucial part that parents can play in influencing epilepsy research, a little bit about GRIN disorders, and pointing out how rare epilepsies do affect adults as well, and we mustn't forget about them. If you haven't seen or listened to it already, do check out our chat about AHC with Alexis Archimanoglu and Rosaria Vivasori right here. Find out more about Eleni and her work on the website torierobinson.com, where you can also access the podcast, the video and the transcription of this episode. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, your family members, and see you next week.